Welcome to the Chessboxing podcast. This week we've got Danlei, Pengting Zoo. Enjoy.
Hello.
Hi Danlei, how are you doing? Are you calling from Bristol, is that right?
No, London. I
Right.
grew up in Bristol, so I think that's why.
Oh, I see. You grew up in Bristol, but you live in London now. Whereabouts in London do you live?
I'm out in Canary Wharf, living with a couple of friends. So yeah, it's pretty nice.
Just over the river from me. I live in Rotherhithe.
Oh, really fantastic! Yeah,
Yeah,
great view
slightly
of
less
the
salubrious
water.
than Canary Wharf, but it's very nice.
It's nice
And
having the marathon the other day as well.
yeah,
All
well,
the runners
actually,
out.
I had to get back. I had to leave London, so I had to get up at like 6:30 because where my flat is like within the boundary of one of the loops or something like that.
Oh
Um,
dear. Okay.
yeah, so I was a bit hungover and had to get up at like 6:30. But I did manage
Oh
it. But
jeez.
but it is nice. In fact, as you mentioned it, your opponent Ruth ran the marathon last year. Just came.
Oh, did she?
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah, she's
that's
very
crazy distance.
into running. So obviously
Right.
that lends itself to fitness and that kind of stuff. Do you do much running?
I'm not a big runner myself, actually. I tore my ACL a few years ago, so my knee's
Oh
been a
no.
bit unhappy about running since.
Oh dear. Okay, but so how do you stay fit then when you're training for a fight? Do you swim or?
A little bit swimming, yeah. I've got some like bone conduction earphones that make swimming a lot more fun, and you can hear music underwater. It's
You can
really
wear them
cool.
underwater. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, would recommend if you're into that.
I've got some, but I didn't know I could wear them underwater. That's a whole new
Mm.
potential area of use that I wasn't aware of. But yeah, they're very cool. I use them for running. Not that I run that much, but hopefully as we get into the summer, maybe we'll use them a bit more. But
Very nice.
very nice, yeah. So, but you weren't born in Bristol, were you?
No, I was born in China in a city called Xi'an, so pretty central.
Okay. And do you visit much? Do you go back there? Have you got family there, or?
Yeah, I still got grandparents, cousins, aunties, uncles. Haven't been in a few years because of COVID and how
Yeah.
funky China's been in recent years, but hoping to do a trip at some point.
Yeah, they seem to have had it worse over there than most places, haven't they? They're still reeling from it, really, aren't they?
Yeah, I think the policy was a bit mismanaged, to say the least. So I think things are easing up now, which is good. But yeah, they've taken a big brunt recently.
Okay, well, and what do you do in Canary Wharf? Do you work in finance or something similar?
I do, yeah. I work in trading. So in foreign exchange and precious metals, we make prices for different assets, and it's all sort of
How
electronic.
much gold do you own at the moment?
We don't own any of it, sadly,
Oh, that's a
but
shame.
we're making prices around it. Yeah, it'd be fun to
Okay.
have some gold bars lying around, wouldn't it?
I was going to say,
I
you're
could
not
show you on
tempted to just,
camera.
yeah, you probably, or does that count as insider trading if you were to just buy like a bar of gold?
No, no, I think it's okay, but I'll give you the good tips when I know of any.
Have you, is this actually links a couple of things we've been talking about? There's a program called The Gold on BBC iPlayer. Have you seen it?
Okay, no, I've not heard of it actually.
Okay, well, this is a massive this is not to the point at all, but yeah,
Okay.
it's about a big heist that happened in the 80s called the Brinkmat heist, where they stole 26 million pounds worth of gold.
Wow.
And by the time the story broke, the heist was worth 27 million because it was so much gold that it moved the price of gold. And then they basically they obviously then had to try and launder it, and the way they did
Right.
that it was through like the initially it was through like gold dealers like in London,
Mm.
and then once they had the money they bought all the docklands all around
Oh,
Rotherhithe,
wow.
all around Canary Wharf, and developed a lot of the property there, and then sold off the property, and that's how.
Really?
Yeah, they know they were. I think some people were caught, but most of the money was never recovered.
Mm.
But they mostly got away with it. But yeah,
Wow.
it's a really good show if you're interested. It's quite a good
Yeah.
dramatization. You've got a lot of really like proper like London Cockney sort of accents, a lot of Essex accents as well. Um,
Yeah,
So
thanks
how
very much
did
for
you?
the tip. I have to check it out.
Yeah, check out. How did you hear about chess boxing?
So I played a bit of chess growing up, and I think when I was trying to Google something related to chess, like chessboxing came up, and I was like, "What is that?" Um, I clicked on the link, and yeah, showed the sport of these two sort of brutish-looking guys sat over a chessboard in the middle of a boxing ring, and I was like, "Yeah, that sounds pretty fun." So
So you just came
it's
down to training, or did you go to a show?
I just came down to training when I moved to London once. I think I tried it out with you guys for a session or two, and yeah, it was really good fun, great bunch of people down there.
Okay. Was that the one where you managed to get onto that Louis Theroux competition?
Yeah, that was a funny coincidence. I think it was Ginny. She was entering the
Yeah.
competition to make a film, right? And then I was down, and she was like, "Hey, do you want to be in the film?" I was like, "Sure." So she, yeah, made a few clips, and yeah, good for her. It turned out really well, and she ended up winning the competition, didn't she?
Yeah, she did. And yeah, she's probably quite close to your weight, maybe a slightly heavier. But I've been trying to convince her to do it, but I'm not sure she's that keen to be punched in the face, which is understandable. Um, yeah, so you haven't actually been obviously you fought in the last event, didn't you? But you hadn't actually been to an event before then.
No, I've never been actually, but it was a great atmosphere
Okay.
in the night. Everything was so well coordinated, and yeah, the crowd were really good, really great energy.
Yeah, the crowd are amazing. They always impress me every time. Every like the last 3 or 4 shows, they just seem to have got louder and better. And yeah, we're really looking forward to. We've got a show in October, where we've got a Olympic gold medalist fighting. He's a
Oh
freestyle
wow.
skier. Yeah, he's not actually a boxing or chess gold medalist. He's a freestyle skier. Um, but still, yeah, that's something to look forward to. So
That's crazy.
how did you actually find the show? Because it can be quite nervous. You don't strike me as a very nervous person. You're quite self-confident. But I've fought 3 times, and it's actually the waiting to go on that I find the
Mm.
most difficult. How did you find that?
Yeah, I think you're right. It's kind of the build up to it on the day. It's like, oh gosh, there's going to be a lot of people watching every punch, every move. It's all going to be on
Yeah,
camera. So that's a bit nerve-wracking for sure. But yeah, I think I was lucky to be on the first fight, so I didn't have to do too much waiting around. I could just sort of jump into it and go straight to it. And I had a few friends in the audience as well supporting, so that definitely helped.
yeah. Being on first is definitely the way forward. I
Mm.
probably shouldn't say this because the trouble is, every time I try and match fighters, they all want to go on first because obviously they can then enjoy the night with their friends, but not
Yeah,
everyone can go
exactly.
on first. Um, and what did you think of the format and the intros? How did you find all the sort of because a lot of it is obviously being a sports person, you have to compete and you have to be in front of people, but then on top of that you've got to come onto like a track and like wave at the crowd, and like there's quite a lot to think about
Mm.
over and above fighting, isn't there?
Yeah, it's quite a nice sort of setup to it all. I think you still got the whole boxing sort of walking in and the
Yeah.
commentators for the chess as well. That was really funny. I think. Um,
Yeah, I think they really bring the chess alive, don't they? The commentators,
mm.
they were brilliant. Um, so let's talk about the actual fight. So you're fighting Ruth Slattery. Um, I don't know. I'll let you talk a little bit about the fight, but I have to tell you, I thought you both acquitted yourself very well. I thought the chess was well matched initially, and then it got understandably slightly less accurate as the rounds went on, which is kind of often what happens. But how did you feel it went?
uh, yeah, no, I think you're right. I think it started off pretty intensely. Yeah, the rounds of boxing, I think, were pretty high volume in terms of punches thrown. Like, there was a lot of back and forth. And yeah, the chess, I think, obviously being bullet, it's never going to be like computer level accurate, but
Well, not with
yeah, still a
attitude.
bit messy in times. And I didn't realize as well in like the headphones, they're blaring big music, like it's
Yeah, yeah.
heavy
That's so you
metal as
can't hear
well.
the
Yeah,
commentators. Perhaps
yeah.
I think I don't know if I did include that. Obviously, I send everyone a little briefing note to what to expect. I think
Right.
it's in there, but if it's not, I'll put it in because
Okay.
you kind of need to practice with that noise, don't you? It can be a bit distracting.
Maybe I just didn't read it, but
No,
yeah,
I may
it's
not
quite a
be in there,
different
to be
vibe.
honest with you.
um, but yeah, it was just quite intense as well. But the transitions were all pretty smooth as well, like people setting up the board and the ref and the boxing. So yeah, I think it was surprisingly easy to transition because they're so different. I think I was expecting it to be rather difficult to sort of be focused on the chess when I was doing the boxing, but
Mm.
actually in the boxing, my mind wasn't really on the chess at all, and vice versa.
Okay. Would you want to take us through the chess game quickly? I did have a look on chessboxing.info. I don't know if you realise, but
Mm.
they've got your whole chess game up there. Do you want to take us through the game?
Oh, okay.
How it progressed? Can you remember too much about it? It's a while ago now. I appreciate.
Um, I think it started off pretty even. I think
I think
Ruth
the
was
opening
slightly
was
ahead
very
position wise.
very balanced and of a good standard. Like the opening from both players, it was very even
Mm,
until the middle game, and then I think Ruth saw an opportunity to basically line up her queen and her bishop,
mm,
potentially getting. I don't think it would have been checkmate, but she would have basically brought her queen right down into the behind your pawn structure in front of your king. But
right.
instead of putting a queen in front of the bishop, she somehow contrived to maneuver the queen around behind the bishop. And then when she brought a bishop
Oh,
up,
yes.
then she got a bishop trapped, and that was kind of the turning point, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think you're right completely. Yeah, it wasn't a very tactical game. It was sort of slow positional at the start, and then yeah, it was. I think it was light squares, wasn't it? And yeah, I think you're right. She probably could have got the queen in. Um, I think my knight
I
was.
think you would have been able to defend it, but I think obviously that would have been a much bigger threat.
Mm,
Um,
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
and in the end, once she lost her bishop, it all went a little bit Pete Tong because then she left. I think she left a rook on pre as well.
Oh, right.
And
And
yeah,
that was yeah, that was the checkmate, I think, at the end.
well
Yeah, I
that
guess
sorry, go on.
yeah, things are going a bit haywire, as you said, and probably as the rounds progressed, it was getting more intense, in terms of boxing, and also maybe the time as well. I think, I guess it's quite
Oh,
easy to
right.
make a mistake and blitz and then spiral from there. So
The clock's running down. And what about the boxing? How did you find that?
yeah, I think it was a pretty good match. We both got some pretty big shots in, I think, on both sides. So yeah, it's quite intense. I think both of the boxing rounds started off like quite aggressive, and then sort of we may be getting a bit tired towards the latter end of the round, so it sort of uh, tamed off a bit. But
Yeah,
yeah, it's a lot of back and forth.
I think Ruth did really well. Well to weather quite a big storm at the first round of boxing. I don't know if it was the first round of
Mm.
boxing or the second round, but I remember there was a moment when I think you kind of realised that Ruth's guard, you were basically throwing this like shovel hook like between her fists, and it got for a
Yeah,
couple of
I think
times, and then you just kept throwing it. You threw it like 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 times, um,
right.
and then I think she got her standing 8 count at one point, didn't
Yeah,
she? So
yeah.
it's not surprising that her chess kind of fell away a bit because I think she did really well to hang on at some
Mm,
points, but then she did come back into it. She threw some good overhands, and she did catch you a few times as well. Uh,
yeah, definitely.
so
I think
I thought it
yeah,
was
watching back.
really go on. Sorry.
Mm, yeah, no, I think you're right. Watching back bits of it, I think she had quite like a high sort of loose guard, so that allows me to get a few shots in. But I was maybe dropping my left hand a bit, so then she was sort of coming over the top with a right at times. So yeah, both areas to be improved in our respective boxing games. But yeah, it's quite
How
an
did you
interesting fight, I suppose.
how did you find the 2 minute rounds? Do you think you could have gone 3 minute boxing rounds?
Potentially, yeah. I think it may have slowed the action down a bit. Maybe we were both quite conscious that it was 2-minute rounds, so we just sort of had to get the punches in whilst we could. But it does feel like a long time when you're in there, because every move is so fast and you're throwing so many punches that it sort of really drags out the time.
Yeah, you both throwing a lot of punches. I think your output was particularly impressive, but you both really. I thought you looked very well matched. It was quite a spectacle because obviously you've got dark hair and Ruth had this big blonde like bobbing hair, and she was all one white and you were black. Which it didn't really occur to me until I saw you both together in the ring. And I thought you were so well matched, like in terms of your physique. It was a really good way to start the show. It was a great fight, I thought.
Yeah, definitely.
So do you think you'd like to fight again? Because I mean, the reason I was asking about 3-minute rounds is because you did seem quite comfortable. And if you wanted to fight for like a belt or something, you'd probably be going for slightly longer time control on the boxing. Is that something you might like to do?
Definitely keen to give it a go at some point. Maybe have to hold up on the beers and burgers a little bit.
Okay.
But yeah, if I get the fitness up, it should be good.
All right. So you've basically been enjoying yourself since the event, have you?
Yeah, just part of usual life.
Fair enough.
And beforehand, maybe.
Well, actually, that brings me on to a question that I ask a lot of, almost all of our the people we interview, which is, what is your favourite chocolate bar?
Oh, that's a tough one.
Is it tough because there's so many, or tough because you hardly ever consume chocolate bars?
I think there's just so many, and they're all quite different. I have a soft spot for Tony's Chocolates.
Yeah. I've been to Tony's. I don't know if it's his factory or basically their kind of big shop in Amsterdam.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. So I'm quite a big fan as well. It's quite, it's ethically sourced, isn't it? That's like the big selling point, I think.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. But it is very tasty. And it's kind of like zany colours, isn't it? And it's not like in squares. It's all like crazy paving sort of pattern, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Did you see the production of it, or?
Yeah, well, I've noticed that it's because I didn't realise when I went to Amsterdam, it wasn't in the UK, but since then that it seems to be everywhere.
Yeah, it's blown up quite a lot recently, I think.
Okay, well, a shout out to Tony's then. And yeah, is there anything else you'd like to say about the show, or anyone you'd like to say hello to?
Yeah, just thanks everyone who helped run the show, put it together, organize it. Everything just went so smoothly, and really I had a very easy job, just turning up, rocking up, and doing the fight.
Danlei, that is wrong.
But just like walking into the stage and everything, all the chairs, the sound, the lighting, the organization and the streaming, all the filming of it is a lot of work to go into show. So thanks everyone for doing that. And I guess shout out to my training partners as well, who've helped me become better over the years.
And how many people did you have coming to watch you?
Oh gosh, maybe 6 or 7, somewhere in that range. Yeah, a handful of friends.
And they were in good voice, were they? They were making themselves heard, I hope.
Yeah, indeed. They made me a nice sign, so that was fun.
Well, Danlei, I hope we'll see you down at training at some point again. You'd be very welcome.
Yeah, down. Thank you. Yeah.
Come down and train with us. And yeah, well, thanks very much for fighting. It's so good as well to see women in the ring as well. It's very hard to. It's so hard to match women because there's just not that many of them. So it's really good to see not only 2 women in the ring, but also very well matched women as well. So thank you for fighting. We really appreciate it. And thanks for coming on the podcast. So that's great. Yeah, thanks very much, Danlei, and I hope to see you at training soon.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Gavin. Cheers.
Okay, cheers.
And that's it for this week. Don't forget, you can get tickets for our next show on the 7th of October at chessboxingnation.com. And you can watch our stream live at youtube.com/chessboxing. Next week, we've got Ruth Slattery and the Berserker. So we'll see you in a couple of weeks, and make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss a beat.